Our contemporary view of medieval times often paints a picture of squalor, violence, and backwardness. Yet, what if those ancient populations possessed survival knowledge that today's preppers and outdoor enthusiasts have entirely missed? Operating without electrical power, contemporary equipment, or digital connectivity, they constructed ingenious systems that sustained them through the most challenging circumstances. This exploration reveals 7 abandoned medieval techniques so powerful they remain relevant for survival today. By the conclusion, you'll discover a startling reality. Medieval communities may have grasped principles of endurance that our technological age has completely lost sight of. 1. Ember transport systems, the original fire insurance. In an era preceding matches and ignition devices, medieval populations created something far more dependable than basic flint and steel methods. They engineered portable flame systems capable of lasting through extended journeys. This ember transport concept represented medieval innovation that few contemporary survivalists have truly understood. The focus wasn't merely igniting fires, it centered on sustaining them indefinitely. Medieval people would take hollow plant materials such as elder branches or reeds, place glowing coals inside, then cap both openings with clay or melted wax. The restricted airflow maintained the ember's life while preventing complete combustion. These containers could travel in hide pouches or timber cases for days, occasionally weeks. When flame was required, users would break open the stem, move the ember to kindling material, and breathe it back into full fire. No spark creation necessary, no friction methods required, simply careful maintenance of existing flame. Wanderers and herders frequently carried several ember systems, alternating between them as circumstances demanded. Some featured tiny air passages that could be opened or sealed to regulate burning speed. Others utilized particular mushroom varieties that could smolder for remarkable durations. Records mention tinder fungi maintaining embers for beyond 2 months. The brilliance lay not in fire creation, but in preventing its extinction. Religious communities preserved continuous flames using comparable methods, maintaining fire across generations without break. For medieval populations, this transcended mere convenience. It represented security. Guaranteed flame meant survival during wet periods when fresh fire starting became nearly impossible. Today, this forgotten approach could determine the difference between warmth and deadly exposure. When contemporary fire-starting tools fail, unlike matches or lighters that eventually deplete, ember transport creates a self-sustaining cycle, a perpetual resource that with proper care never requires replacement. 2. Comprehensive smoke curing, beyond simple meat preservation. Modern understanding of smoking focuses on flavoring, enhancing bacon or fish taste. Medieval populations recognized smoking as a complete preservation framework extending far beyond protein, a system today's preparedness community has largely forgotten. Medieval smoking chambers weren't limited to meat. They functioned as multi-purpose preservation facilities for everything from grain to medicine to textiles. The process required understanding smoke chemistry. Different wood species produced varying compounds that preserved through different mechanisms. For grains vulnerable to weevils and moths, smoke from juniper or pine created protective barriers insects wouldn't cross. Grain sacks underwent days of smoke chamber exposure, then storage in smoke-infused containers. Results included grain supplies lasting years beyond untreated storage lifespans. Herbs and medicines received smoke treatment to concentrate properties and extend usability. Certain medicinal plants actually increased potency after smoke exposure, knowledge herbalists possessed but rarely documented. Smoke altered chemical composition, sometimes creating compounds absent in fresh plants. Textiles also benefited. Linen and wool exposed to specific wood smoke became naturally water-resistant and less appealing to moths. Smoke-treated ropes and fishing nets lasted longer in moist conditions. Even leather received smoke curing for water resistance without oils that would eventually spoil. Advanced smoke preservation occurred in specialized chambers with multiple zones, intense smoke below for meat, moderate smoke centrally for grains, and gentle smoke above for delicate herbs and medicines. Nothing went unused, everything underwent transformation. This transcended preservation. It represented alchemy, converting perishable materials into permanent ones using only controlled smoke. For modern preparedness, enthusiasts focused solely on smoking meat. This medieval knowledge presents a forgotten dimension, a complete preservation system requiring no electricity, chemicals, or modern equipment, just fire, patience, and nearly lost knowledge. 3. Living barriers. Security, meeting sustenance. Long before barbed wire or electric fencing existed, medieval communities developed something far more clever. Living barriers providing both protection and nourishment, a concept modern homesteaders have almost entirely abandoned. Hedge-laying techniques created impenetrable barriers by partially cutting young trees and shrubs, then bending and weaving them horizontally. During healing, these plants grew both vertically and horizontally, forming living walls that resisted cutting or burning. These weren't merely barriers, they were intentionally designed ecosystems. Hawthorn and blackthorn provided defensive structure through vicious thorns, while fruit trees, nuts, and berries were interwoven for food production. Medicinal plants like elder and willow were incorporated for healing properties. The outcome? A security system that nourished you, healed you, and strengthened annually instead of deteriorating. Living fences required specific maintenance. Annual cutting and weaving, always during winter when sap was dormant, maintained density and proper growth patterns. Some medieval hedgerows became so established they outlasted protected villages, remaining centuries after creators' deaths. Sophisticated versions included hedge gates, concealed openings known only to locals that could be rapidly sealed during danger. Others incorporated external ditches and internal raised berms, creating complete defensive perimeters. Wildlife utilized these hedges as forest corridors, bringing hunting opportunities directly to village boundaries. Nesting birds controlled insect populations in adjacent fields. Annual trimmings provided valuable materials for baskets, tools, and fuel. This wasn't simple fencing, it was living infrastructure providing security, food, medicine, and ecological services simultaneously. For modern homesteaders spending thousands on fencing that eventually fails, this medieval technique offers something remarkable: protection growing stronger rather than weaker with time, while providing nourishment in the process. 4. Clay energy storage, medieval power conservation. Before plastic containers, refrigeration, or modern storage systems, medieval people mastered nearly forgotten technology: clay batteries, vessels designed to store not electricity, but equally valuable cold, heat, and preservation potential. These weren't simple pottery, they were engineered systems with specific designs for different purposes. The most common was the cooling amphora, double-walled clay vessels with spaces between walls filled with wet sand. As water evaporated through porous outer clay, heat was drawn from inner chambers, creating cooling effects without ice. Food stored in these vessels remained fresh days longer than in ordinary containers. Milk stayed sweet, meat spoiled more slowly, and fruits maintained freshness, all without a single ice cube. Heat batteries operated on opposite principles. Specially formulated clay, mixed with materials like crushed stone or metal shavings, was formed into bricks or discs. These were heated in ovens or fires, then wrapped in wool or linen. Dense materials released heat slowly for hours, sometimes entire nights. Travelers carried smaller versions in pockets or pouches. Shepherds placed them in cloaks. During coldest nights, these heat batteries were tucked into bedding, maintaining warmth until dawn without open flame dangers. Most sophisticated clay batteries were preservation chambers, sealed vessels with precise mixtures of ash, salt, and herbs lining interiors. These created microclimates dramatically extending seed, grain, and medicine lifespans. Monastery records mention seeds remaining viable for decades in these chambers. These systems' remarkable quality wasn't just effectiveness, it was their regenerative nature. Unlike modern disposables, clay batteries could be reactivated thousands of times. Cooling amphorae functioned for generations. Heat batteries could be reheated indefinitely. For modern preppers focused on battery-powered solutions with limited lifespans, these medieval technologies offer something profound: storage systems that never wear out, require no rare materials, and can be made from Earth itself. 5. Friction. Waterproofing, medieval weather protection. Before Gore-Tex, plastic coatings, or chemical sealants, medieval people developed waterproofing technology so effective it could maintain dryness during downpours, using materials modern survivalists encounter daily. Most remarkable was friction glazing, waterproof coating created without modern ingredients. The process began collecting specific tree resins, typically pine, spruce, or birch. These were heated and mixed with rendered animal fat and beeswax in precise proportions, then cooled into paste consistency. Genius lay in application. Rather than simply coating fabric or leather, medieval people used friction to transform materials at fiber levels. Paste was rubbed vigorously into materials, sometimes for hours, generating heat that opened fibers and allowed mixture to penetrate completely. Once cooled, treated materials became remarkably waterproof while remaining breathable, something modern synthetic waterproofing still struggles to achieve. Rain beaded and rolled off, but perspiration could still escape. Cloaks, boots, tent coverings, and bags treated with friction glazing lasted years with occasional reapplication. Hunters and shepherds spending weeks exposed to elements relied on this technology to prevent hypothermia and keep belongings dry. Sophisticated versions included additives like crushed charcoal for UV protection, certain mineral powders for cold weather flexibility, or specific herbs for insect repelling. Each region developed formulas based on local materials. The system's remarkable quality was self-sufficiency. Every ingredient could be harvested or produced locally. No factories, chemicals, or global supply chains needed, just knowledge passed through generations. For modern outdoor enthusiasts replacing expensive waterproof gear every few years, this medieval technology offers something revolutionary: a system you can create yourself, maintain indefinitely, and adapt to any natural material using ingredients found in any forest. 6. Acoustic navigation, the abandoned sense. Before GPS, compasses, or reliable maps, medieval travelers developed navigation systems modern hikers have completely forgotten: sound wayfinding using acoustic environments to determine location, direction, and safety. This transcended hearing obvious sounds. It was sophisticated acoustic landscape reading. Travelers learned to identify positions by how sound behaved in different environments. Shout echo patterns could reveal valley presence. Distant sound dampening might indicate approaching precipitation. Medieval pilgrims and merchants developed sound maps, mental guides of how different regions should sound. Forest birds differed from region to region. Wind through oak leaves created different tones than through pine. Even personal footstep sounds changed based on soil type, elevation, and moisture. Water was particularly crucial in sound navigation. Experienced travelers could determine stream directions from over a mile away through specific frequencies carrying through forest or field. Some could estimate water source size by acoustic signatures. In fog, darkness, or dense forest where visual navigation failed, sound became primary sense. Travelers would periodically create noise, clapping, singing, or striking wood, to read returning echoes. Gathered information could prevent circular walking or dangerous terrain approach. Most skilled practitioners could use sound to predict weather changes hours before visual signs appeared. Certain bird calls, insect sounds, or shifts in distant noise carrying signaled specific weather patterns. Critical knowledge when shelter needed rapid location. This wasn't mystical. It was deeply empirical knowledge gained through generations of observation and necessity. Properly trained human ears can distinguish over 1,500 sound variations, capability we've largely abandoned in our visually dominant modern world. For today's hikers dependent on electronic navigation that can fail, this medieval technique offers something invaluable: navigation systems working in darkness, fog, or when batteries die, using the one instrument always available: your ears. 7. Distributed knowledge systems, the human network. Before books were common or literacy widespread, medieval communities developed something modern preppers often overlook: resilient human memory systems preserving critical survival knowledge without a single page or screen. This transcended storytelling. It was sophisticated information technology using the most reliable available storage medium: distributed human memory. Critical survival knowledge wasn't entrusted to single elders or experts. It was deliberately spread across communities through specialized memory techniques. One method was knowledge chaining, where specific information was divided among multiple people. One person might know medicinal plant identification features, another their harvesting times, and a third their preparation methods. No individual held complete knowledge, but together, communities retained everything. Memory systems used rhythm, rhyme, and melody as error correction mechanisms. Critical information was encoded in songs or chants where meter and rhyme schemes made incorrect remembering immediately obvious. Some knowledge songs contained hundreds of data points about plants, weather patterns, or construction techniques. Physical spaces became memory devices too. Village layouts, field boundaries, and household item arrangements served as physical information reminders. Specific tree or stone locations triggered particular memories, landscapes literally containing knowledge. Children were systematically incorporated into these networks, often through games embedding critical information. Simple counting games might actually teach safe plant identification. Singing competitions might preserve proper sequences for complex tasks like leather tanning or grain preservation. Most sophisticated aspects involved redundancy. The same critical information would be stored in multiple forms: songs, stories, physical arrangements, and games, ensuring that even if one transmission method failed, others would preserve knowledge. This wasn't primitive oral tradition. It was human-centered information technology more resilient than any book or hard drive. Books burn, servers fail, but distributed knowledge spread across dozens of minds could survive almost anything. For modern preppers focused on stockpiling survival books that might never be read, this medieval approach offers something profound, ensuring critical knowledge remains accessible even when all records are lost, by storing it where it's most useful, in human minds ready to apply it. The greater truth: wisdom versus dependency. We often regard the Middle Ages with superiority: no technology, no electricity, no modern conveniences. But after exploring these 7 forgotten survival techniques, perhaps we should ask a different question: who faces greater vulnerability, them or us? Medieval people didn't merely survive. They developed sophisticated systems working with available materials and natural processes. They didn't battle nature, they aligned with it. Every explored technique reflects deeper understanding of how the world actually functions when stripped of modern infrastructure. They didn't need to learn survival skills. They lived them daily. Knowledge wasn't theoretical, it was practical, tested, and refined through generations of real-world application. Today, we've traded resilience for convenience. We've exchanged knowledge for information. We've replaced community interdependence with isolated independence. In doing so, we've become more vulnerable than our medieval ancestors in ways we rarely acknowledge. The most powerful medieval survival technique wasn't any specific skill, it was their integrated life approach. Nothing was wasted. Everything served multiple purposes. Systems worked together rather than in isolation. This wasn't primitive thinking, it was systems thinking at its most sophisticated. The question isn't whether these medieval techniques still work. They do. The question is whether we're humble enough to learn from those we've been taught to view as primitive. Because in a world of increasing uncertainty, the most dangerous thing might be our modern arrogance. The belief that we've outgrown the wisdom of those who thrived without any systems we now depend on. Medieval people weren't just surviving despite their limitations. In many ways, they were thriving because of them. And that might be the most important survival lesson of all.